Hello, Monique. This is Corey with Creative Habitats Landscaping. Let's take a tour of my ideas for your landscape. So this is the starting slide that I have for the design that I did. One of the things I recognized on your job, this is your house right here. If you look here, the red is north, which means your front faces south and you get a lot of intense sunlight. So in the design of this, I've tried to accommodate for that sun exposure that will be taking place. So these are my ideas for your landscape, and let me show you what some of the specifics are. This is your limelight hydrangea. I've moved it a little bit, but I've got it here and I've got it repeated over here. This is a grouping of camellias. They could be the same or they could be a mix. The way I've drawn these in here, it is a mix. Let's look at this a little bit. We'll zoom in here a little bit. So we have camellias. This is big blue liriope. And then this is some sort of a perennial. My first inclination is homestead purple verbena, but there's some other things that will work well in there. I've also tried to highlight, if you look at the face of your house right here, I've highlighted this bed with Tennessee fieldstone so that it makes this whole landscape composition very cohesive. So let's take a tour of some of these plants. This is an example of a camellia. These will typically bloom in either the late fall or early spring. Another example of a late fall blooming camellia right here. This is homestead purple verbena. I like this because it is semi-evergreen. It doesn't always bloom year-round, but the foliage on it does stay somewhat put throughout the winter. This is another plant right here. This is catmint nepata. It will be another good colorful plant for the same position as the homestead purple verbena. As a foundational plant, I have big blue liriope. Now, I know big blue liriope is traditionally thought of as a ground cover, but the reason I put this in here is I don't want to put a bush that's going to get really big. So this seems like it would be a very good substitute for a typical bush in that location. This is at our shop, at our office. I just took this photo like an hour ago, and the blooms on it are starting to fade, but you do get some blooms out of this. You do get some really good evergreen foliage in that. In other words, that would be the plant right here. Right now, you've got boxwoods, and they're going to want to get up to about this big. So since it looks like you at least want to have the facade of hanging out on the porch, I didn't want to put something here that's going to get big and cover that up. Let's turn our attention some to this area right in here. I would recommend 2 pots. These are pots that I would want you to pick out and have delivered to your house. Amazon or Etsy are great resources for pots, or you could go to a local place as well. Let's talk a little bit about the plants in this. This is purple heart. The reason why I have it in the pot is because purple heart needs very, very little water. So if you forget to water this, generally purple heart is going to be fine. The next plant is autumn joy sedum. It is another plant that needs very little water. And this is what the sedum looks like in the fall. The rest of the year is going to be more of what you see here, but then in the fall, it looks like pink cauliflower in a lot of ways. So it's another plant that I would recommend for in the pot. Another plant that is at the base of that pot is coreopsis. This is tick seed coreopsis. I like this a lot because it does a lot to attract hummingbirds and butterflies. It is a really, really good wildlife attractor. Moving our attention to the back. You talked about moving these hollies towards the back to give you a little bit more space. We can do that. Also, you mentioned building a wall through here so that your dogs are not as likely to come up in this area. So I built a wall through here, and then there's the suggestion of adding river stone through here, once again as a deterrent to keep your dogs from going up in this area. It is only a deterrent. I can't guarantee that this will actually work. But some options in this location to make this area a little bit more attractive. This is, by the way, is a recommendation of wall block. And we have some of that wall block in stock, which we, particularly since it's left over some other jobs, we would give you a little bit of a discount on this block. But some other ideas in that top bed are to add in the river rock, maybe add in a couple boulders, and then some other perennials in there. These are just examples of what that area could look like right there. This is very similar to the river rock that we would be putting in there. So this is another really good perennial that we could put in that same area as well. Then lastly, another thing I recognized, the water that drains off of here is collecting in this area. What happens is dust falls on your driveway. It gets to this point where it wants to drain. The grass filters it out and it begins to build up. We can put a drain box in here that will help alleviate this problem. So those are some ideas for you in terms of what we can do with your landscape. And that again is the final product. Just a quick review. Camellias, big blue liriope through here. These are perennials to add color. And this is also a perennial through here. And then we've taken the limelight hydrangea and we repeated that through here. But those are ideas that will hopefully brighten up your facade. And one very important thing, you really do need to get some gutters up here because all of this water is spilling off of here and it's drowning these plants. So having gutters through here will greatly help this out. Thank you so much, Corey with Creative Habitats Landscaping.